It is an honor and a pleasure to be here. And in short, I am a Silicon Valley veteran and have worked with probably thousands of entrepreneurial companies over the last 2.5 or so decades. I've seen a lot of what does work. I've seen a lot of what doesn't work. And as Bill knows, I'm very passionate about helping others, entrepreneurs, founders, business leaders, helping them to achieve success by taking what I've learned, sometimes the hard way, and developing that into their mindset, the way they look at things, but also to drive their actions. And interestingly, just end of last week, I read the latest statistic that said it's less than 4% of organizations that are started by an entrepreneur, less than 4% today, succeed for more than 18 months. Meaning 96% fail within the first year and a half. And when I read that, I really reflected back on today's session and I said, so let me do a bit of research and think about what I've experienced. And what I would conclude is the reason for that 4% to succeed is heavily because the founder, the entrepreneur, is full of optimism, is convinced we will make this work, and is willing and able to invest time, money, energy, contacts, connections, invest all in, jumping fully into the boat to say, we will make this work and I know it will happen. That's mindset. That's belief. But then when I took a step back and really thought more about the companies I've seen fail at all stages, even from the Nokias and the Blackberries from ages ago to the various startups in metaverse and cybersecurity that have gone down the path, I recognized that some of the failures also were a result of optimism. People believing that because I believe it, because I'm convinced of it, everybody else will. People will simply follow. And then I thought more about somebody I followed for 20 years, Sun Tzu, a Chinese philosopher from back in 500, that noted your strength will become your weakness. And that, to me, is one of the paradoxes of entrepreneurship. You believe, you're committed, you're all in. But the further we go with that, the greater the chance that we will get that tunnel vision. We won't see, we can't even hear the other opposing views. So the entrepreneurial mindset, sure, is about optimism, but it should also be about skepticism of what's really happening? What else do I need to know? And how could this play out in a way different than what I envision it to be? And that aligns with, again, what I have seen over these last 25 years, both in my own business. I have founded 2 businesses, one of which has grown to a reasonable level of success, one of which has petered out and gone nowhere. And in both of those, I can see that dilemma, the belief driving it, the belief causing me to miss the obvious of business model, right team, right people, etc. Having lived and worked across various places in Europe, as well as with large global giants like Adobe and Cisco and Google and NVIDIA, I've seen the same patterns across industries and across different geos. Because after all, we are humans and we have the same human tendencies, positive and negative. So in this next 90 minutes, 80 minutes, give or take, I will walk you through my perspectives. I will leave a lot of time for us to discuss and share examples, perspectives on that entrepreneurial paradox, what our strengths are that can become our weakness, and some ideas of how to avoid becoming that 96% that fail. And I will share a methodology, let's call it, for success that is with peace. That is an approach that I have observed and then formalized into a framework, we could say, for succeeding. Succeeding in growing a business, but succeeding in scaling, developing, and transforming a business. And it starts with purpose. Being very, very clear on the problem you're solving, the purpose for moving forward with it as a company, the purpose of why you're going out for investment funding, how you want to expand into a new market, clarifying, and focusing on the most important things to achieve that purpose. With that, you do have the opportunity to openly explore how might we best accomplish that purpose? What are the steps, partners, customers, investors, tools that we need to get there within a time frame? Because ultimately, growth comes from action. But action is not just doing stuff in order to do it. Action for a successful entrepreneur is intentional action. You know the purpose. You know what you're trying to get to. You've explored the options. And you've carefully selected the first one to act on with some clear measurable criteria to determine, did this work or not? Collaboration. Open to new ideas, open to new people, open to exploring openly what others can bring that can enhance what you have. I often say 1 + 1 = 13. When you get two ideas, two complementary capabilities, that's a good thing. And to build a scalable, sustainable business, you must empower others. You, as the entrepreneur, cannot be the sole source of success. You need others around you with different skills that align to your purpose or mission. So I will share a couple of examples of how leaders have leveraged this peace concept in order to deliver and to build their company successfully as a private entity, and then ultimately to be acquired in a very lucrative acquisition. And finally, I will leave you with 3 summary keys for success. The 3 things that, in light of everything, can make or break the successful 4% of companies vis-a-vis the 96% that don't make it. As we get started, a huge thank you for those that completed the little survey that gave me a bit of insight into where you're coming from. I've looked at some of your videos as well, and very impressed with the group that we have here. And I would say that you definitely have the capability and the opportunity to be in those 4% that succeed, because you do have the commitment. It seems as though everyone is 100% locked in to take off in your rocket ship. You've thought through customers, or for those in the med device field, maybe not yet ready for customers, but how you're going to get there. And I was very impressed in reading through the latest survey results that the vast majority of you have personally, it seems, reached out to customers, partners, and really gaining insight from the outside into you as to what they believe is successful. So you're on the right path. That's a good thing. The question now is how to get that rocket ship really soaring high above the clouds, and how to avoid the entrepreneurial paradox where your strength becomes your weakness. One of the aspects of this is exemplified by one of my clients a few years ago. Now, this gentleman, we'll just simply call him Sam. He had a brilliant idea of a specific capability in the cybersecurity world. He had already built and launched and successfully sold a startup. He had the right team around him, and he'd gained pretty good traction in the market in the first 12 months. He had customers, he had 2 partners, he had a good engineering team, and his investor partners that I had worked with previously recognized that this is one we really are going to bet on to become a unicorn. All the right things. So they asked me to go and meet with Sam, knowing that I and my team within Next Step do a lot around the go-to-market, the sales, the marketing. How do you really gain traction in the market? Some investors thought, we need some outside perspective on how they can really effectively scale what they've already started. So I go and I meet with Sam and recognized everything looked good, but he was very unclear on how to go from the 1 salesperson, the 5 customers they had, how to get the 2 partners to really produce and sell beyond where they were, and how they were really going to track the results of their massive marketing campaigns they were putting in place for their target market. So I said, those are all things we can help you with. We do a lot around identifying the right go-to-market approach, but then aligning the right salespeople with all of the pieces behind it. And Sam said, that all sounds good. Let me think about it. And then about 2 weeks later, he came back and he shifted from this bright, engaged entrepreneur somehow into what I would call Mr. Potato Head. Now, those of you that have been around for a few decades may have remembered this as a toy we played with as a child. Mr. Potato Head could do anything. Here in Norway, people refer to entrepreneurs as potatoes. Why? Because many entrepreneurs, like Sam, believe I can do it all. I've got this. I'm an expert on not only building a great cybersecurity product, and an expert on getting funding, and an expert on how to prepare for an exit. I'm also an expert on hiring sales leaders. I'm an expert on partner development and marketing. In Norway, they call that being a potato, because a potato is good for a lot of different things. But it's not necessarily your most gourmet meal that you're going to take your spouse or partner out for. A potato is kind of a basic thing. It does a lot of things fairly well. It can be fried, it can be mashed, it can be stuffed, it can be a lot. And that was the case with Sam. So he came back and he said, I've got this. I've got a great idea, and I know a guy that was VP of sales for the US in this product division with Cisco. He's leaving, he's committed to come. We've got 2 more partner leads that I'm sure I can go out and close those, and I'll have John, the Cisco guy, have him work with them. That's all good. And we've got some more investment. We'll throw more into marketing. We're good. So that's great. You're so confident and optimistic that you've got the right people and the right direction. Good luck. I'm here to support if questions come up. 18 months go by, and I get a phone call. And it's Sam. And he says, I don't know if you remember me, but we met some time ago. I said, yes, of course I remember. How's it going? How's John working out? How many partners do you have now? How's the marketing funnel? And he says, well, didn't quite work like I thought. John, the sales guy, lasted about 7, 8 months and he quit. And then we hired Pam, who we thought would be much better because she came from one of our customers. That didn't work so good, and we're still trying to get out of a lawsuit with her. And the partners, the 2 we had, have both canceled their contracts. We're trying for a few more, but we're not sure. And the board is ready to pull me out of here. And when I asked him, I said, so Sam, what do you think led to this? You were so positive. And his answer basically was that he started recognizing along the way, I don't know everything. I don't know what I don't know. I thought I knew how to hire a sales leader. I thought somebody that led enterprise sales in this market in Cisco could sell our cybersecurity. That's not the case. The right salesperson for cybersecurity in a startup has very different skills, background, mindset, and aptitudes than the person within Cisco. I thought I knew how to build partner relationships. That's a skill in and of itself. It's a profession, partner development. Not everybody that is an entrepreneur is born with that skill. So it was a real wake-up call for Sam that he's not Mr. Potato Head, can't do everything, and needs to really rely on others to do the things that are outside of his own wheelhouse and experience. The good news out of all of this is that we were able to jump in, and in about 6 months, we had cleaned out a lot. We'd established a couple of well-aligned partners in which the vision, the needs, the direction of that partner matched the needs and direction of our client. That is the basis. And we were starting to nurture those. We had defined the very different background of what was needed for a sales leader. We had begun the recruitment process. We built a comp plan that would really maximize their success. And we'd already started seeing revenue begin back up the trajectory. That's simply one example of the entrepreneurial paradox. You can't do everything. You're optimistic, you believe you can, but it's simply not possible. You're a human. And so let's look at some of the other traits that we as humans have that can be positive, but can become our weakness. Entrepreneurs typically are curious. We want to solve problems. We like a lot of different things, and we become creative. I could do that. There's got to be a way if we do this and we do that. and we get excited about it. We want to explore. Tell me more. What if 1 + 1 = 13? What could we possibly believe in and build? The disadvantage of that can come back to haunt is a lack of focus. We believe we can do it all. The first step to building a business is to start at the first step. Do one thing really, really well. Be confident in it. And then replicate it. Look at other ways that you can leverage that. So, yes, curious, yes, creative, yes, explore, but keep the focus on the purpose. What is it that you're really trying to achieve now? You're connected. And look at how much you've learned and grown your connections and your network just through this program. That's great. It gives you access to everybody. However, if you randomly bring curious, interested people into your business, you can end up with chaos, kind of like Sam did. So the disadvantage of being connected with access is it's easy to get misalignment. It's easy to believe that this person who I really like, I really believe in, sounds like they have the right skills. I believe they will succeed as my sales leader or my head of engineering. That can lead to chaos. I've always said, most important thing with bringing people into your company is hire slowly. Do the due diligence. Talk to people that have worked with them. If it's a salesperson, talk to their customers. Do the backdoor reference checks through your network and your connections. And be very selective to ensure that when you do bring people in, they are well aligned as opposed to just people. And as noted, you're committed and determined and have that drive to make it happen. That can lead to tunnel vision. While you may ask people, what else should we be doing? What doesn't work? Are you really, really, as an optimistic, committed entrepreneur, are you really open to listening to what they truly say? Or is your bias and your determination getting in the way of really hearing when they say, this all sounds good, but I'm concerned about? Are you really taking that but seriously? So to be among the top 4% that succeed, be aware of these tendencies and be on the lookout, always questioning, am I on point and on focus? Is this person truly aligned in values, style, experience, aptitude to be a part of what we're building? And am I really openly listening when I get feedback and hear from others? Because that is ultimately the entrepreneurial paradox, to manage through those elements. And we've touched on the importance of purpose and focus, knowing where you're going. And to me, this is a very critical characteristic that I see within all of the companies that I work with. Everyone within the company, do they truly understand what is the most important objective, purpose that we need to achieve right now? Now, reflect back to 20 years ago, actually. I was living and working here in Oslo, as it turns out, with a company called Tandberg that is now a part of Cisco. And the chairman of Tandberg, also an entrepreneur, Jan Christian Opsahl, is probably one of the most unique and successful true quality business leaders I have seen or worked with. Jan Christian Opsahl was 100% determined. There was no looking back, there was no question of we will get to our purpose. And our purpose as an overall company was to completely change the way people communicated and worked with each other through our technology, which even today, when you look back, is known as some of the highest quality technology for video communication. Now, it's ironic I say this here on a Zoom 20 years later, but at that point, in early 2000s, video was this expensive, kind of clunky, kind of special kind of thing that not everyone was open to. Let's not travel to the meeting. Let's just do a video conference. Jan Christian Opsahl and the leaders within the Tandberg unit were determined that that is the future and making a difference for our planet. The question was how to get other people, customers, and other markets to accept this. Now, Tandberg had a good name in the Nordic market, and so Nordic growth was not too much of an issue. I joined and was recruited by Tandberg to build their international business. How can we convince people across Europe and in the US to use these funky little video camera thingies? And we started with being very clear from the point of view of Jan Christian Opsahl, what do we need to achieve right now? So at the beginning of each year, he would set very clear goals. And the first year was within this year, we're going to get to 5 different regions that we're not currently dominant in, and we're going to ship 10,000 units into those regions. One could say, how, Jan Christian, do you think we're going to do that? And he would say, I don't know, and I don't care. I'm not going to tell you how to do it because I'm not a potato and I really have no clue. I just know that's where we need to be. And that's why you, Jennifer, and the team around you are here, that you need to figure it out. And so we went out and we did that. We explored, going into various markets and meeting with people and really asking, what are the challenges with people showing up for meetings or conferences? Where are the opportunities for us to extend what's already happening? And we found in that process that there were people that were open to this, people in that early adopter mode that were curious, and there were companies that were looking for technology that they could integrate within their own suite of technology to deliver greater values to their customers. So the first turning point was in the UK. One large communications provider, British Telecom. A lot of competition happening from Orange and Vodafone and all of these different companies. And they said, hey, we will OEM your product and we'll bundle it with our services. And that's a win-win because that will help us with our problem, which is how to differentiate, and it will help get you to the market. So we doubled down on British Telecom, 100% all in for 6 months. Once we started to see that we're beginning to get some partners that align with BT's vision, partners that align with our vision. We're starting to get commitments. We're starting to get orders in the UK. Then let's take what we learned from that and apply it to the next market where we're starting to see some springs of interest, into the Netherlands. Let's get that going. When we get that moving, didn't take 6 months this time. It took 3 months to see traction. Then let's look at a bigger market, Germany. How can we do the same there? So start with the purpose, explore the best, quickest, easiest, most successful way to get there, act, and then collaborate with others to really evaluate what drove that success and how can we repeat it as we empower people in the other regions to do something similar. So start with purpose, explore the way to get there, act, collaborate, get feedback, open-minded, listening carefully while you empower. Ultimately, within a matter of a few short years, Tandberg was the #1 provider to British Telecom, which actually the BT relationship was the strongest of anywhere in Europe. And we expanded into the US, and that vision continued to the quite successful sale of Tandberg-to-Cisco. So, little Norwegian company that no one had heard of 25 years ago is today the primary video backend still today for Cisco's solutions. And when the acquisition happened, the only time in the history of Cisco, the amount that was paid for Tandberg was 3 times the asking price. They made an offer for Tandberg. The team negotiated back 3 times the price of the original offer. And that was based on focus. It was based on the technology. It was based on the breadth of the reach, the strong partners, and the strong customer relationships. Also, as a small FYI to the positive, that today, a number of years later, even here in Norway, Tandberg is not only a recognized name, but that acquisition that freed a lot of people that had been part of the company, we were about 4,000 people at that point, they have gone on to found a lot of the primary video capabilities that are used around the world. So when you see Pexip or Hudley or a lot of the technology, that all comes from that same vision. So the takeaway to me is you can really accelerate quickly when you start with clarity of purpose, empower people to explore, act in one way, then collaborate, open-minded, and empower more success. So overcoming the paradox, your strength will become your weakness. Follow through step by step with peace. And the last thing I will share, then I look forward to open Q&A and happy to share lots more examples along the way. The last thing to share, 3 keys to success. Out of everything else that you've heard, at least from me, the things that I believe will drive you into that top 4%. Firstly, you've heard me say it a few times, focus. It's the hardest thing many times. And I often, working with entrepreneurs, paint the picture of we all, in the wintertime at least, want to have that beautiful burning fire in our fireplace. And I don't know about you all, but I know myself sometimes when I'm home where I do have a fireplace, I have a tendency to put all of the logs in with that vision, it's all going to take off. put as many logs as I can, light it from as many angles as possible, thinking the more matches I throw at this thing, the greater the chance it's going to blur. It's going to burn nicely. For me, at least, that has never worked. I end up with smoke and a mess. Whereas when I start small, one log, whether it's a Duraflame log or a regular log, get one thing going well. And we all know in building a fire, we know, and we have that instinctual, that intuition of it's ready for one more little log strategically placed on it. So we put too much in, it's going to put it out. Let's put one strategic log, get that going, and then add the next log. It's very difficult. I'm working with a company here in Norway now. It's intelligent threat detection, i.e. detecting and using AI to really analyze hybrid threats, anything from cybersecurity to physical to defense. And lots of need for what they're doing today. And over the last 9 months, they've had many opportunities. Can you integrate into this? Can you integrate into that? We've chosen one log first, and that is the power market. Because if there is one industry infrastructure in the Nordics that's important, it's power. So let's go deep into the power market, leveraging the technology to prevent any issues in that one market for 9 months. Let's get 3 working customers. Let's get their data, and we're analyzing and building benchmarks in that one market. And almost every day I get calls from the entrepreneurs. Well, we've always wanted to go into supply chain, and we've been asked by the power companies, could we integrate into their supply chain? No, one log until we get to the level where we know it's burning. Probably in another 3 months, we'll be ready to layer on now supply chain. So one log at a time. Focus. And secondly, as people, we are born with 2 ears. 2 ears and 1 mouth, actually. As excitable, committed entrepreneurs, we like to talk a lot. We like to talk about our baby, especially when we meet investors or potential customers or people we're networking with. The best way to succeed is to go into those meetings and events 2 open ears and 1 strategically opened mouth, ready to ask questions, ready to listen. Asking those open-ended questions. What are you seeing in the market? And really listening. I know for me, sometimes when I ask that, what are you seeing and what do you need? I have a tendency to hear them talk while thinking, yeah, they see it the same way I do. They need what I have. Oh, this is good. This is good. And that's not at all what they've just said. So listen carefully and listen deeply. The open-ended questions. Help me to understand what you mean by that. Tell me more. Because the more you listen, the more ideas you're going to generate, and the more commitment that person is going to have. As people, we like to talk. So if you let that investor, partner, customer talk and explain, he's getting more emotionally bought into the concept. So listen carefully, ask questions, and good things will come as a result. And finally, the top 3 questions that you can leverage for any meeting, whatever the recipient of your questions is and whatever the objective is in the meeting. Is asking openly, what, Mr. Entrepreneur that we're working with, what, Mr. or Mrs. Investor, what do you believe are the skills, the experience, the validations? Validations could be FDA, it could be customer acceptance, it could be partner success. What do you believe we need now? Ask and listen, because that will be a clue of what they either perceive you're missing, what they want to see you bring in order to invest in your company, to buy from you, to commit to a service agreement. Secondly, ask yourself, your team, your customers, your investors, what could possibly go wrong? That's another way of saying, what am I missing here? Just like my buddy Sam, when he was setting off to hire his sales leader, build his marketing team, he had it all. What could possibly go wrong? He demonstrated the answer to that 18 months later. Wrong match for the salesperson, marketing is not paying off, and we've let the partner relationships die. Ask openly up front what could go wrong, and think about and internally process what those answers are. And the last question, which is one I use in just about every meeting that I have, whether it's with investors, partners, team members, customers, what else should I know? This is one that I would truly say, I guarantee, if you ask that question at least 2 to 3 minutes before the end of the meeting time, ideally 5 or 6 minutes before the meeting ends, if you ask that question, what else should I know? And then you seal your lips and you force yourself to just the answer that eventually comes, because if you don't jump in, if you just ask it and let that silence get really uncomfortable, that other person begins thinking, well, what else should I tell them? I kind of would like to know what the compensation plan for this sales job is. I would like to understand the background of the engineering team. If I'm going to invest in this, I really want to know where you see this being in 15 years and why you believe that. If you ask that question, what else should I know? Remain silent, 2 ears, 1 mouth. You'll get some really good insights that I am confident will keep you from being blindsided, keep you from marching into that tunnel without recognizing what could happen around you, and significantly increase your chance of being among the 4% that actually succeed and achieve that North Star. But it starts with being clear on the purpose. What is most important for us to achieve overall, but what do we really need to achieve this quarter, this year, and be very specific with it. and explore. You can't do everything, but what are the first steps? The first logs you can begin to put in that fireplace to get to that purpose. And strike the match, get that first log going, monitoring it carefully, using the bellows to blow on it when need be, and looking back to say, what's working for us and for the team, before then empowering and moving to the next log, the next iteration, or in Tandberg's world, the next country. It's one step at a time. So yes, you're an optimistic entrepreneur. And in your optimism, you can balance what you're doing with what might come at you when you ask those questions. Sometimes people don't ask, what are we missing, out of fear? But you're optimistic. You have no fear. Ask the question because you have the ability to then shift and adapt. And you have a great team around you just within this cohort to help you get to that next step. So I wish you every bit of success along that journey. And I look forward to hearing questions, comments. It looks like there's one thing in the chat. I don't know if chat questions have been coming in. Yeah, so we see everyone at 12:36. That's in the chat. Comments, questions, thoughts from Bill, Carolina, Regina.
So yeah, any feedback or any comments that Jennifer has popped up? Jennifer, I'll kick it off in terms of in terms of the three questions. I think the question, if you could help flesh out a little bit more the third question, what else should I know? And that gets to the sort of Donald Rumsfeld, there are known unknowns and there are unknown unknowns, and that whole discussion. Obviously, the what else should I know? The important unknowns are going to depend on the context, right?
Yes.
So I don't know if you have a story or an example of that can flesh that out a little bit more, but a little more color on how to set the context for asking the question, what else should I know?
Yeah, it's a great question. So one context that just happened last week actually was I was asked by one of our clients to do some, call it background checks for a team member that they were bringing in. They're bringing in a new engineering director, and it's a very critical role for the company. And so I reached out to a few people that I know through LinkedIn that know this gentleman and set up interviews. Or not so much interview as much as just conversations, Zoom conversations. And in two different people, when I asked that question about, let's call it again, we'll just stick with Sam, the question about Sam, the candidate. In two cases, when I asked, what else should I know about Sam and your experience of him, there was that silence. And in one case, it was, well, I kind of debated this, and I've always kind of feared that somebody was going to call and ask me. The company that we worked for together 15 years ago, there was a fraud issue, there were some other issues. Now, I don't know if that had anything to do with Sam, but it's since you ask.
Okay. Well, did that, I'm sorry, did that put a stake through Sam's heart, or did that, that then had to lead to further investigation, presumably? Is that true or not?
That's exactly it. It led to further investigation, and it brought out, and to our client, just the fact that there had been this issue, that was a red flag. But then when he explained the issue, that he'd actually been set up by somebody else, it was a whole political nightmare, and he explained a lot of different aspects about it, that ultimately led to him being engaged as a contractor, not an employee, engaged on a short-term basis, very circumspect as to what he's doing and what he has access to. Over 6 to 9 months, he proved himself and is long past that.
Huh.
But
Okay.
it was interesting because he actually came back and he said later, he came back and he said, so thing from that for me as Sam is that I I've always wondered if that would ever come out. And
Mhm.
I was always concerned and I lived in fear.
Uh,
I mean,
yeah.
I'm very glad that came out and I've worked past it. So
Yeah.
it ended up being a true win-win for all parties.
Huh.
Yeah.
So if I can, okay, extend on this theory, this theme rather, this theme of team.
Mhm.
One of the, I think attached to your sort of label optimistic, around the entrepreneur mindset, um, is, sometimes there's I don't know, one of the challenges of a lot of entrepreneurs is figuring out when to fire people.
Yeah.
Yes.
Uh, and so I'm wondering, to what extent, your framework, well, I mean, at least you're thinking on, your strength becomes your weakness, your
Yeah.
enthusiasm, your embrace of this, your college buddy or whatever, becomes your weakness in that, boy, it's really hard to fire someone whom you really like, right?
Yes.
So then you got to take the blinders off and figure out.
Yes.
So can you talk a little bit about, sort of that aspect of, the challenge of being an optimistic entrepreneur?
Yes, very, very good points. And so I mentioned my rule of thumb is hire slowly, and that is very strategically and is getting outside input and doing a lot of background checking and rethinking.
Hmm.
Hire slowly, but equally important actually is fire fast. Fire slow, fire fast.
Okay.
If it's
Boy.
not working, I mean, realistically, in the world in which we live, everything happens so quickly. And if you're listening to your intuition, if you're listening to your heart of hearts, you hire the guy, you've done the due diligence, you hire him. If in the first month something is just not feeling right,
Hmm.
not a good thing. Be very clear. Let's stick with Sam. Sam, in the next month, I need to see you do A, B, and C, and we need to get to this result. Real
Mhm.
clear. Here's what we need to get to in another month. If we're not there, I don't know that this is going to work out for either of us. And when
So
they're not there, do it.
then it's Sam's responsibility in that context to say, okay, fine, I'm on it, and for me to get to here, here, and here, for me to accomplish this, this is what I need. You know,
Exactly.
I need this
Exactly.
person, I need this resource, I need this time, I need this budget. Okay. So there
Yes.
it's kind of a two-way street. Um, but so one of the challenges, in my own experience, is making sure that when you give people responsibility and accountability, you also make them responsible and accountable for defining what they need in order to be successful.
Yes, absolutely.
You can't, and you don't want to get to a situation where you're upset with someone after some period of time and you say, geez, you didn't, and the guy just complains and says, well,
Yeah,
you know,
you
uh,
did.
Bob was supposed to help me, and
Yeah,
Bob went on sick leave and whatever and whatever. So you've got to figure out, a culture
yes.
that, to your word, collaborate, collaborate,
Yeah.
you know, it's a good word. It's a great word. you know, how it works in practice though, is, you know, is very important. If it's just sort of a high level corporate value, yes, yay, we collaborate. But if it doesn't come down to practice that says, wait a second,
Yes.
I need 8 hours of Mary's time, on Thursday in order to get this done, blah, 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 right? So,
I agree. And that's where accountability comes into that. I mean, and I think that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs have challenges with is really holding people accountable. When you came in, you knew these were the objectives. I ask you on your first day here among us, what, Sam, do you need in order to be successful in achieving these things? You told me X, Y, Z. I delivered them. You're now accountable for delivering what you said you would do. And if it doesn't happen repeatedly and you're getting that little inkling in the stomach, I don't think this is working, the sooner you can release that person to success elsewhere, the better.
Mhm.
Because if it's not working for you, it's not working for them.
I just want to jump in a little bit here. When you're starting out in early stage, a lot of the people that you're hiring, you've known,
Mm-hmm.
become your friend because you're asking heroic investment in your company, often at a lower rate than you can get in the market.
Mm-hmm.
And it's challenging because some of what we're talking about now kind of strips away the heroic investment that different folks have made in the company and your vision as the lead founder. How do you navigate that? Because the truth of the matter is, it doesn't always work out. The people that you first bring in may not be the line personnel to take your company.
Mm-mm.
You formed relationships, become
Yes.
friends, and you're drinking beer after, and you tried to have the conversation, how can we do this better?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not easy. I'm not saying any of this is easy, but I think to some degree, it starts with upfront when you bring the person in, recognizing that maybe they're earning half of what they could get if they were at a Cisco. When you bring them in, endeavor to the best of your ability through open questions to really understand, why do they want to be part of your company? What is their purpose in joining it? Are they coming in because they really like you and they know you need somebody and they know they've got the skills and so they're doing you a favor?
Mhm.
That's not always a recipe for success because that sets up a whole who's doing what. Are they coming in because they have a vision in another 2 or 3 years of starting their own business and they've always respected your leadership approach and your success and they want to learn from you? That has a little better chance of them feeling that it's an equal. I'm giving up the money, but I'm getting a lot more experience. So that's a good thing. We're in this together. It's over and over. I see the ones that succeed the most in business in general are very careful in selecting either team members, co-founders, investors even, customers or partners, where there is synergy. There is an equal need and a desire to work with each other to get to a common purpose. And if I think back to the Tandberg example, British Telecom had a purpose at that point, had an objective of we must differentiate with great innovation. We want to do it with a high integrity, quality product built in Europe. That was their goal. Here was Tandberg, brought exactly that. That's a win-win, not a BT saying, hey, we kind of like you guys and you're kind of cool little Nordic folks and we could get a trip to Oslo every now and then, we'll do this for you. And it's the same when you hire people. There's got to be an equal, why are we doing this together?
Thank you. The other thing that came to mind as you were talking is that this whole concept of your strengths is also can be your weaknesses. I'm sure we've all experienced, but stepping back from a founder point of view, how do you kind of get a sense or recognize when your strength is starting to turn against you?
It's a tough one. In that the best way to ultimately recognize it is to go inside yourself very honestly and very intentionally. Go inside yourself and really listen. It's that listen to yourself and your intuition. Is this working? I mean, we all know inside ourselves when something is just not fitting. And it may not just be today, I'm having a bad day, but if there's a pattern, if you really ask yourself, what am I missing here? And you get 2 days, 3 days, 5 days, 2 weeks, 6 weeks, and that keeps coming up. Go then and talk to other outside parties and explain. Here's what I've heard. Here's what's not sitting to me. What are you, John, hearing? And what are you seeing when I tell you this story? Get an outside perspective. So it's so easy to just quash it away and carry on.
If I could, chime in on that one, you know, uh, and soul searching doesn't always work. um, but one of the I think the great things about the entrepreneur process is that unlike a sort of structured corporate process, where it's hard to have a lot of of sort of internal peer support in a lot of corporate environments. And the famous "it's lonely at the top, the CEO is a lonely position" or whatever. The great thing about startup companies is you start as a team. And that creates obligations within the team to be honest with each other. And one of my most memorable sort of founding moments, I was put together for my fourth startup company, which was in ed tech for higher ed. I was put together with the VP of Education for Apple. Very senior guy, almost intimidating how impressive this guy was. But literally some VCs pasted us together to create this company. And so this guy's name is Bernie Gifford. And he realized, that he was a very senior, seasoned person, and he said, "Look, Bill, here's the deal. We are partners, and it is the responsibility of a partner to pull the other partner away from the edge if he's about to step off."
Yep.
And it was a very, sort of bonding conversation we had around, his willingness to take this junior guy, call me his partner and say, "Look, Bill, I need you,
Mhm.
to grab me and pull me back from the edge, because I know every once in a while, I have an inclination to step off the edge, right?" And so I think it's an important part of your founding culture as a team
Mhm. Mhm.
that you create that honesty amongst yourselves.
Mhm.
And
Completely.
and that is going to be, a much more efficient way of improving your behaviors and performance than soul searching. I mean, soul searching is good too.
Yep. Both together.
So, Aditya, you have a question, comment?
Yeah, no, thank you. This is wonderful. I think my sort of question slash comment is I very much empathize with the potato head comment, but I think there's also this sense in which when you're in a startup, you have to move fast. And sometimes, like we went through this process of trying to find grant support and realized they're just too slow. So we have to just sort of do it ourselves. And,
Yeah.
we pull in experts and, other members on our team who have more experience. But how do you navigate that? How do you navigate that process of having to do stuff yourself because you're resource constrained, and then figuring out the right times at which you say, "I'm going to take a step back, and I'm going to go and look for help"?
Yeah, two aspects. One is going in, being very, very clear of what you are capable of. I mean, let's face it, there are some things that we're just simply as people not capable of. I am not capable of scientific analysis or to be honest, engineering work. I could try all day and I can't do it. So recognize what you are able to do, what you're good at doing, and the things that you're not able to do, look for others on your team to be the backup. That if we absolutely need somebody to go deep in grant writing, we've got Sally, who's a copy editor. She can figure this out. So it's not always you, it may be others if it's skills outside of you. The other thing I would suggest is as early as possible in your optimism, knowing that you're going to need new skills, plan ahead. That's where your connections, the network you have, always be planning, always be talking to people and assessing. Sally over here is absolutely great at engineering. We don't need her skills now, but I'm going to follow her on LinkedIn and I'm going to make sure we stay in touch. So always try to think ahead so it's not one of those, "Oh shit, we need this tomorrow. How do we get to it?" And recognize the other thing I would say to that is recognize that if you jump too quickly to the wrong person, or you jump in yourself and you don't have the aptitude or ability to do it, you could end up spending a lot more time trying to get out of the situation that you jumped into.
Yeah. And so, yeah, and just to chime in on that, the the reality is when you're starting up, you have limited resources, right? And so you have, out of necessity, you have to be a Mr. Potato Head. Yeah, I mean, out of necessity, you have to wear multiple hats, right? Um,
Mhm.
so the challenge, I think, in that, sort of evolution from idea to startup to scale up is as you are, taking on more challenges and bringing in more resources, you have to constantly work as a team to figure out, are we allocating ourselves optimally? And are there things that we are spending our time doing that we should simply not be doing? I mean, and that's one of the sort of famous lessons learned about entrepreneurship is, and Jennifer, you touched on it, this issue of figuring out, what we should not be doing and whether or not that frees up resource that we can use to do something of higher priority. And so it's a constant balancing mechanism. One of the things though that is an overlay to this issue is most teams are not well, they're not equally balanced, shall we say. and one of the characteristics you may or may not have as a person or your teammate might have is there is a tendency for some people to be to have control issues, shall we say. And I'm guessing everyone here knows what I mean when I say this. And what I'm also guessing is that most everyone here believes they're not the problem. But maybe that may or may not be true. But that's part of what you need to figure out, as a team. Hey, Aditya, come on, let it go. Let Rohit take care of it, okay? Rohit could take care of it. You don't have to keep your hands on this thing or whatever it is, right? I know apologies, I'm mixing up people, but that's it's a huge challenge for a lot of groups. But I would just be very aware as a team of your tendency of various tendencies to have control issues. And call each other out on it, in a constructive way. I would encourage you. So
That's an agreement up front that we're in this together and we're going to pull each other back and we're going to push each other away at times when we need to.
So Moses?
Yes, thank you very much for the session. It's been very interesting and thought-provoking, actually. So I was just thinking, at what point, because it's actually a bit tough when people have invested a lot of emotions and time in the business. At what point do you think we should establish metrics to be able to evaluate team members, to know when to make that call of go, no go with team members? Because oftentimes entrepreneurs are fully focused on creating the business, putting metrics on the business growth, but not really paying attention internally as to metrics to evaluate team members. So at what point do you think that should happen in the life of the entrepreneurial process for the business? Thank you.
Very early. Very, very early. And as hard as it is, because you do have a lot going on and you're probably bringing in those first people at lower pay rates and asking them to do amazing things, it's naturally, as humans, it's hard to say, great, welcome to the team. I need to see in a month, I need to see these things and we need to check in. But it is important. It is very important to give clear clarity of what each person is expected to deliver. And you check in on a regular basis to see how's it going. I mean, if you set the objectives for the first month and within a week they've achieved all of them, hey, that's cool. Let's move to the next set. If within a week it's clear that they're nowhere near the perspective that you need, Don't be optimistic, be honest, be realistic, and say, hey, John, we need to talk because I want you to be successful. And the only way this is going to work is if something's not fitting, we need to talk about it up front. The sooner, the better. The longer it goes, the worse it gets and the harder it gets to make a change.
Mhm. Yeah, I totally agree. And again, Jennifer, mentioned this the importance of even at a startup level, you've got to be planning. You've got to be thinking about what do we have to accomplish and what's our highest priority. I strongly, strongly encourage every team to day one, establish a discipline of goals and objectives. And
Yep.
figure out a framework and get it in writing, put it down. I don't know, whatever tool. There are tools out there. You don't need a fancy tool to put goals and objectives down with responsibilities and deadlines and review it on a consistent basis. So, I mean, almost certainly all of you are running some form of weekly meeting, right? And so I'm assuming you're all got some sort of framework for running that weekly meeting, and that framework, it probably should include, your active goals and objectives. And well, we're going to talk about this a little bit more in sort of the operational excellence part of the program. But put it down, what you got to achieve, who's responsible for it, what the deadline is. And it doesn't have to be a tool for punishment. It's a tool for it's a tool for improving your operational performance.
And rewarding success. How do you know if they're successful unless you know what they were supposed to do?
Good point. Good point. Josefina.
So I'm going back a little bit to when we talked about strengths and weaknesses. One of the things that was recommended this weekend was to take the innovation mindset, the little test, like 10 questions. I'm not sure how many questions it was.
Right.
What is the best way to use it? Like, because
Yeah.
I read the results, I could reflect a little bit on like why I am this way, what I could improve. But is there a way of seeing your evolution, maybe taking it later, or how to share it with people? What is the best way that you've seen it being used?
Yes. So, thank you for bringing that up. I did want to bring that up. And Jennifer, I don't know if you had a chance to take a look at it or not.
I did.
Yeah, but I encourage everybody. We put it into the WhatsApp. I don't know how many people had a chance to do it. I strongly encourage you all to do it. I think the best way to review it is because it is talking about somewhat abstract terms, right? It's talking about resilience and diversity and belief and allocation and collaboration and comfort zone and innovation zone. It has these terms that are not intuitively obvious what they mean. And so there is, if you drill down into, they should have given you, there should be a link in there in your results that says learn more about the Berkeley Innovation Index, and it'll talk more about how these things apply. But then what I would do is I would share your results with the rest of your team. So I would recommend all of you, take it and then sit down and share the results and ask each other, does this resonate? Does my score here resonate with you? And either it does or doesn't. But if it does, ask each other, what do you think this means in terms of my own strengths, my own weaknesses, and our culture here working together as a team. And that should bring out some interesting open discussion. That what's going to happen is over the weeks, months, years, people are going to say, you know, Josefina, remember we said you had that problem with trust? Here it is again, you know? Yeah, maybe you need to work on that, you know? I don't know, whatever, but as an example. um, and so you know, it's a, I think, valuable context. The other thing that Berkeley says that you can, you can adapt over time. And so I think they recommend, I'm not sure what the time frame is, but I would recommend that after 6 months, well, why don't we just do it this way? At the end of the program, let's have everybody take it again. See if their scores change. Okay. So part of your homework for this week is to do the BII, is to do the innovation index, and share it with your team and with your mentor to see, does that open up anything in terms of our own mindsets and our team and what it means for our team and the complementarity or whatever the various issues on our team that maybe we need to collaborate to address. Is that fit? Thank you so much, Josefina, for that.
Thank you, Bill.
Okay. And Jennifer, thank you so much for
Thank you.
being here today. Thank you. That was really,
Thank you,
really
thank you.
appreciated. So go enjoy. I wish I could remember the name of my Norwegian dishes, but go enjoy a good Norwegian dish for dinner.
Perfect.
And really appreciate your participating and helping us out here. So,
It's
all
been
right.
great to be here. And I would just echo one last thing on the Innovation Index, that it's a great example of being open with your team. Because if there's anything that's going to really bond your team, it's making it okay to share. Here's what I'm not good at. Let's look at what you're not good at. Let's look at how we support each other. Let's be open, because that's going to build the trust and that integrity across the team that we're in this together. So it's been an honor to be here, and I look forward to following the journey.